Hello, happy last Monday of June. Wow. And I think that's what, Jen, we're here to talk about in our HR huddle today is how do we get our arms around this great opportunity for the HR function? And am I echoing to start off our recording here? No, okay, then I'm going to keep going. So we talked last week about the Great Resignation, and Jen and I were talking about all the opportunities that we have for HR, and thought maybe we should spend some time talking about the great HR function opportunities. And we've been kind of teasing, but not really saying, no, can't do that. No, can't do that. Kind of putting our deflectors up, and feel like many of you probably are feeling the same way. And it could be yes, but, or yes, and if I have the right resources, or yes, and if we, talk about what the right priorities are. And we know we've been doing that in our organization. We've been helping firms manage that, in their operations and HR functions, and also with their, partners and managers and client work, and trying to figure out what can we do proactively, which is very, very little. And so we thought we should stop and maybe say, gosh, what does that mean as we take a step back and look and say, what could we be doing for our HR organization and our HR function? What should we be paying attention to here? Or maybe there's some new asks that we haven't thought about before. So, Joan, anything you want to add for the setup there?
Well, just that, it's easy to sort of be hopeless right now. Like, wow, has there ever been a time when there were more things we need to change and do on the talent side all at once? And no matter how large your organization, from a partner who's partially dedicated to HR and no one else, or something like that, to a full-time HR person, who's a chief people officer that has a huge organization. It doesn't matter. If you are in talent management and HR, you have been flattened for 16 months, as flattened as the tax professionals and the auditors and the client accounting and advisory folks. So, you could be like, wow, could they ask any more? I've got nothing left to give, or whatever. And we're wanting to flip that a little bit and say, what are some things we could do that don't feel sort of powerless, hopeless, that might have this all be an opportunity?
Yes. So, I think that's smart. Well, and so before we jump into maybe some strategies, to solve it, I do want to say, saying no isn't hopeless. So I think that's kind of where you and I were, a few minutes ago in one of our meetings. And that one of the things that we've been helping leaders do is sometimes we do just have to say no, or we're in goal setting process with some partner groups and with our TLP participants, and we have to help scope it. And so there is some saying no. And I think that is okay. And most of us are yes people. And we want our operations people to be yes people. And we want to be yes people for our team and for our firm. And we want to make a difference. And we do see all these possibilities. But we also do need to step back and maybe take a breath before we say yes, and see if it's practical, and really get real as we're approaching our second half of 2021, which is unbelievable. What are we going to be able to accomplish in the next 6 months? And what do we have to be ready as we start to prepare for 2022? And so I just think maybe that permission to say no, and that we all have it, maybe giving our team members the permission to say no. And then we can look and say, where does it fit, or how can we get it done? Which is where I think you were, Jen, about the possibilities. And so we could look at our structure and say, how do we best facilitate that? And so I think I'm going to jump in on the function side. And I think there's an education piece that I would start with. As we've been using roles grids, and we can send you our HR roles grids. If you would like a copy, you can email us or message us in social media. We'd be happy to send them to you. But I think it's like, pull those out and dust them off and say, what are the different functions that we have, and who owns them, and whose names are in the different boxes, and start to see, where we need to maybe make some shifts, because there's been changes that have happened. But also, that's a great place to start to look and say, we have a need for another kind of role. and we can use that to invent what that role is or define what that role is based on some of the things that we're trying to accomplish and responsibilities. And sometimes our partners and our leadership team or our executive committee doesn't necessarily understand everything that is falling under these groups and the different functions that you might have, and then the individual people. And so there's some education updating first, and then some education probably to happen to say what do we really have now, and what are we trying to accomplish, and then how can we shift that around with our current people, but also then add to it. If we're going to find some maybe temporary help or a part-time role or another full-time role, I can look at it literally like in black and white and move those boxes around. And I think that's super helpful. I know it is for us. Sometimes we're tired of updating this roles grid, but it makes a difference when we do. And we all rely on it. We look at it and use it like crazy.
Yes. Well, there are 10 major functions within the HR department, and maybe some of you would define them slightly differently, and I'm not going to list them all here, but recruiting would be one as an example. But there's also the whole talent management function where performance management might live, and retention and engagement could live. So that's a big ball right there. Recruiting's a big ball. So we have lots of different pieces to this organization. But people outside of HR don't know what those pieces are, and they have no idea what all your yeses already are. Things like performance reviews or raises or benefits administration or re-enrollments or
promotions.
401k, the whole employee benefits piece at the various points, whatever it is that you have going on, they don't know all those things. So education is important. Tamara's right. Having a visual for senior leaders. This idea of prioritization, which we've talked to you about a lot, and we're not going to go deep on that, but just the idea of what are my top 3 things for this quarter, that's crucial. That gives you a basis to say no. And it doesn't mean if you don't have those defined and agreed upon that you have to say yes to everything, but it does make it easier if we say, man, this next quarter or 120 days, these are the big 4 or big 3 things we're doing. And that way people can come to you with other problems, ideas, opportunities, and you could say, boy, we really want to work on that. That's a great idea. Maybe we'll slate that for next quarter, or, I can't start that for 30 days. So we do have to negotiate priorities. And then Tamara and I were talking about what we really thought we needed to cover here is adding headcount. Right. And we really need to add headcount in almost every single firm on the talent side. And Tamara said some magic words, which I loved, this idea of outsourcing or temporary labor, contract labor, outsourcing, offshoring. We know firms that are doing that for talent functions. So you can definitely head down that path. But many of you need to just add pure internal headcount potentially to help manage all that needs to be done to really elevate the HR function and really get where we need to be on the most, in my opinion, important 2 things you should be doing right now. And that is filling your recruiting pipeline with continuous talent recruiting and strategy, and really being the most effective you can be on campus and the most effective you can be with experienced hire recruiting. And then the second component being retention, and in particular the stay interviews we talked about last week in the Great Resignation issue, if you're looking for it out on YouTube. And so that whole idea of, wow, we've got to work on engagement, motivation, and getting these people to stay and continue to build their careers with us. So if those are your 2 big boulders, if you will, for the rest of the summer and through maybe the fall busy season, what sort of support do you need to do that? And how would you define that support? We think every firm that's got more than 50 people needs at least a part-time dedicated recruiter. And, it used to be in the olden days, they'd say, well, 80 to 100 people per 1 HR person. That was yesterday. Yeah, Tamara and I, both of us furiously. No. That was yesterday, man. We also wore fingerless gloves and wrote with a quill pen or something. I mean, that was then. This is now. So, today we really have to recognize there's nothing more important than having full-time emphasis on recruiting, dedicated focus on it. So who is your recruiter? And if it's you, and you also do a bunch of other things, that's not what we're talking about. We have to have somebody in that function working it day and night, every day, waking up and thinking about it. on both on campus and experienced hires. That's experienced hires is what gets short shrift usually. On campus has a season, so we're like, I'm working on it, and you work it for the season, then it's finished.
Well, and it's a lot of coordination. It's a completely different skill set. And so that's the other thing. And that's part of the education again. But people are like, why can't that person do both? It's a different skill set. I need a coordinator to manage. And once you've got the on campus going, it's a machine. Like you said, it's like it's got its cycle and everything. But the experienced hire recruiter is a sales job. It is a business development position, and I am managing a pipeline, and I am doing outreach, and I am on social media, and I am, building connections, and looking for those opportunities, and managing a database, and that's your pipeline. So it's a different skill set, and figuring out what that is and carving out those activities separately, I think, is so important. Yeah. I also think the pipeline. I said pipeline, but I like a parking lot. We should be having a parking lot of all the requests that you're getting. And I don't know how we're managing all those requests, but like that we should have a list of possibilities. The tax service line leader wants this partner in charge of training wants this partner over here is, talking to some professors over here and thinks we need to do an alumni meeting. There's a list coming at you like crazy, and to your team. And we should have a central place, whether it's on Teams or whatever you're using, that is managing those requests. And then we can start to say, okay, this is how we could group these together. And this is the kind of position that could do it. That can help start to justify where, Jen started this was, we think everybody needs to be adding headcount to your HR function. And that kind of list can help justify it and show, what we're going to work on and what results we're going to produce with it. So, getting that organized and figuring out what all those nice to haves are. I think we kind of all feel it like it, but sometimes it's way up here. And if I can pull it down and say, this is what we think the next ones are, and this is the kind of position we would need, or I could do it if I had this kind of position. If I delegated some of these other tasks, and my team, Mary on my team delegated some tasks too, then we could work on that. And then we could have somebody else come in and step right into some of those, maybe process or, other roles and responsibilities.
Yes. And Tamara, we could outsource that, or we could hire a part-time contract recruiter who was a recruiter in the past and maybe doesn't want a full-time job or doesn't want to work at a recruiting company. They would like to work at a different entity and maybe single focus their recruiting. Those people could be very good candidates for this role that you're talking about. I put out there in the comments that on-campus recruiting can be built as a machine. It is changing though. And so we want firms to be rethinking that, and whoever's running the machine for you, and again, it could be you because you're being, as my parents would say, chief cook and bottle washer, you're doing all the jobs. Well, in that instance, the machine has to be rethought. We probably need to go to community colleges. We have to start influencing people that are non-traditional students. We have to look at finance, economics, technology majors. It's not just accounting majors anymore because we haven't had necessarily the luck that we might have had in the past. And enrollments in accounting are down. So we've got to rethink some of that. We want to get the lion's share of the good ones. So we've got to build relationships with professors. And normally we haven't been doing that. We just sort of attend the perfunctory affairs, if you will, the scheduled meet the firms night and those things. That's what most firms are doing because we have limited resources. So if we could put more human being time and thought into these important functions, if you had more capacity, what more could we do in terms of results? And that's the conversation to have with your boss or, with a managing partner, the executive committee or management committee or whoever it is that you work with. That's the conversation to have. What additional results could you produce if you had additional resources? And what would those resources be? Most of them are business people. So they'll be like, yes, add the resources. But they're like, what kind of resources? They want you to have it defined. That gives them the confidence that you could do it, that you'll make something out of it.
Well, and you just were talking about innovation, and I think that's one of the things that goes to the bottom of our pile. And it's like, we cannot afford for innovation to go to the bottom of our pile. And we can't do everything, all the ideas that we have either. So we do have to manage, and that's part of the saying no. but it's this balancing act all the time. It's a struggle. Struggle is real. And so we have to figure that out. But gosh, when you were just talking about that, it's like, here's how my whole list of innovation, and maybe it's other stuff. Why aren't we doing this? Or this firm is doing this. Yeah, that'd be great. And we could be cynical and snarky and, all those things about responses to that. But that's the possibility also, that if we had this kind of resource or we outsource some of these components, here's the 3 things that we really do need to innovate on. And maybe one of them is on-campus recruiting that we could go tackle. Or, we're talking about technology that we heard some firms are using with their talent. Yes, we would love to do that. And we need resources. And maybe I need some IT support and need to carve out some of their resources, identify that and communicate that too. But you just struck me, Jen, when you were talking about that innovation goes to the bottom of the list, and it's hard to pull it up when we're just like trying to survive, with everything else that we've already committed to, all the yeses that we've already said.
Well, and Tamara, I love it. I loved the struggle is real, because it is, and the balancing act between innovation and just like trying to stay the course and do the things we know how to do and get them done well. And so there is this balancing act, but the market's changing. I mean, it's changed. It changed already. The pandemic changed everything. So we can't change everything at once, but boy, do we have to change most things. We do. And to do that effectively, you have to have more resource. And for most firms, not all, but most firms, they're making money, folks. We had decent growth on the top line, and net income per partner, which is the profit, is decent. It's solid. So it isn't that we don't have the money to invest. Now, every firm is different. I'm not speaking I haven't seen your firm's financials. I can't promise this. Right. But I will tell you, on the whole, most firms have the ability to make these investments. And I get very excited because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneurial person. I want to build something. And so I love the idea of you taking this opportunity that the pandemic has handed us. And it's also the challenge, the talent challenge. And you take this opportunity and build something with it. You have an opportunity to do that. Now, there's an irony, Tamara. I was thinking about this irony of, in order to build something, I have to recruit someone, and I have no one to recruit anybody. That's kind of gnarly. So but I can't let that stop me. I have to stop and recruit the help I need. And I might have to tell my firm, time out. I have to shift priorities for the next 90 days. And one of my top 3 has to be fill a couple of these talent gaps, either with an internal hire or an external contractor. And I have to sort of say no to some of these other cool things we want to do until that person's in place. Because the one thing that we always have to remember is you only have one you, one body, one mind, one soul. You can only do so much before you start fraying at the edges, burning out, being grouchy and overwhelmed, and stop being as effective as you could be.
Right.
And nobody at your firm wants that.
And you can outsource recruiting for those positions. So please do that. Go get some help. If you get approval for it, go get some help. Don't try to do it all by yourself. And, use the engine that you've already got, obviously, and all of that. But ask for help. I think that's the other thing is, the fraying at the edges is partly because we're trying to do it all ourselves. And we got to say, hey, I need help. And right. This is specific. And if we can, the more specific the request is, the more likely you'll get a yes. I think if we just say, I need help, I'm drowning, I'm over, it's like, okay, people don't know what to do with that. But if you say, this is what I need help on, these 2 or 3 things, they can say, I can help here, or so-and-so can help here, or let's defer that and come back, and let's do these 2 things first. Then people can help. They know how they can actually, what they're signing up for, first of all, what they're agreeing to, but also they can see, gosh, I can do that, or I know somebody that can do that. So that's the other thing.
Yes. And we so much want to see you all build this function. It's an opportunity to get it to be something to prove that by investing in talent within the HR organization or the talent organization, that we can return more. We've got to get out of this place where we feel like we have to say no to clients and we have to say no to new business. We feel as HR people, we have to say no to our internal clients. What's going to change that? Right. We can't just continue in it and complain about it, right? Geez, resources are so slim. Well, okay, what are we going to do about it? Firms are figuring this out. We don't have to be helpless and hopeless. We have to be proactive, but we have to add talent resources.
And Go ahead. I want to add one thing.
I was just going to say, and play this video, get your managing partner executive committee to watch this recording. They need to hear us, leaders. Invest in this talent function stat yesterday. Get it done. Put some bodies on this. You will be surprised at what they can do.
Yeah, and it will get us out of this crunch. It really will. We do believe that. We're not just saying that. We really believe it will. I have something I have to say about that, though. So I don't want to end on a negative note, but we might need to elevate our people. One of the things as you're looking at your HR function is, gosh, some people are not a fit anymore, or outgrown them, or not moving in the same direction, or we need different skill sets. I know that's a hard conversation to have and hard reality, but we're probably saying it, we're probably gossiping about it to our triangulation buddy, maybe our managing partner, and talking about it anyway, or other people are talking about it. It's a great opportunity to right size your organization and people that are no longer a fit, or use the roles grids and create a role that they can be successful in. Like, that's the best of all worlds. But sometimes that's not the case. And we keep, kicking that can down the road. And this is a time where we just cannot afford to do that. And so getting clear about, what you need and what those roles are, and then how does the people that I have fit into that. And, we redesign roles and people take on new responsibilities, all the time. But sometimes it's like, that's not quite a fit. And so we have to get real about that too. And I know that's one of the hardest, things to do, especially if they've been, with us a long time, or, they're people, and, we are caring and compassionate about that. But that's part of solving your capacity challenge with the HR function as well. So very, very important.
100%, Tamara. And I don't think that's ending on a negative note. I think if I had one piece of advice to leave you with on this, all of us together, is let's just be real. Let's get real about what we can do with the current capacity and what we could possibly do if we had better, different, more reconfigured and innovated capacity. And we have to make time to figure that out. And we don't have to write lengthy job descriptions on all that. We could. And by the way, we have samples. Communicate with us in social. Email us. Our names are Jen, Jen, at convergencecoaching.com, or Tamara, Tamera, at convergencecoaching.com. Email us, and we'll send you resources, or we'll point you to resources that we're aware of, because you do have a golden opportunity to really be an MVP in the change in your firm. Really drive some wonderful, not just change in the talent function, but in talent in general, the way your firm manages talent, talks about it, because now we can stop having it be this problem for us and have it be, wow, look at all the cool things we're doing in talent these days. Right. No other firm is doing this. People want to work for us because of how we're managing this. And that's what we want. And I know with additional resources, you can get there.
And the word will get out. When you do that, the word will get out. So have a wonderful 4th of July holiday weekend. We hope you're taking some time off, relax, sit by the beach, whatever your, desire is this weekend. And we will be taking next Monday off because we are closed for that holiday. I think many firms are recognizing that as a holiday as well. So we'll be back with the HR Huddle on July 12th. We'll have a guest at that time that will be a managing partner that will be talking about culture. So we look forward to seeing you then. And we will be talking to you in social media. So have a great week. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.